What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Weekly GCap, the only source you'll ever need to catch up on all the gaming news from the last week. And unfortunately, before we get into this episode, I do kind of have to get a little bit real with you guys. So I wasn't going to mention this originally, but, you know, I have nothing to hide. For those of you that have been following the channel for a while, you might remember back in, 2022, I was talking about how I was in recovery for anorexia, and long story short, I unfortunately relapsed and have been restricting my eating and have been underweight again for some time. So right now, I'm just kind of currently recovering from that. So if I sound a little off in terms of my energy, or if it seems like we're moving at a bit of a quicker pace and just kind of getting through the news at a faster rate than usual, that's why. I just really have to focus on conserving my energy and getting better, so I apologize if the next couple episodes for the next few weeks might be a little bit different than usual, but I'll still deliver the news, still deliver the goods. As always, there will be chapters down in the description, as well as just, if you scroll through there in the time bar, they should show up there, but otherwise, let's get right into this. First things first, let's go ahead and go over all the major game releases from the last week, as always. And this week, similar to last week, is still unfortunately a little bit quiet, but we still got some solid releases here. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the PC version, Star Wars Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles, that being a remaster, and Sin Duality Echo of Ada. Those both came out on January 23rd. And then moving up to January 22nd, we have Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist, and it is worth noting that this game was available on PC in early access before, but now it's leaving early access there. So yeah, those are all the major game releases from the last week. Hopefully next week and, the weeks following, now that we're getting out of the New Year period, we should see things ramp up here soon. Next up, Behind the Frame, the finest scenery is free on Epic Games. This will be free until January 30th at 11 a.m. EST, so you might as well go redeem it because there's no better price than free. Next up, I have the second wave of January Xbox Game Pass games for you guys. So, on January 21st, we have Lonely Mountain Snow Riders, that being for Game Pass Ultimate as well as PC. And then on January 22nd, in the standard tier, we have Flock, Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess, Magical Delicacy, Chia, The Case of the Golden Idol, and Starbound. And then for all tiers, we'll have Gigantic Rampage Edition joining the service. On January 28th, for Ultimate and PC only, we'll have Eternal Strands and Orcs Must Die Death Trap. Then on January 29th, for all tiers, we'll have Shady Part of Me, and then for Ultimate and PC only, we'll have Sniper Elite Resistance. Moving up to January 31st, we have Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector for Ultimate and PC only. And then February 4th, we'll have Far Cry New Dawn coming out for all tiers, Ultimate, Standard, and PC. But unfortunately, leaving January 31st is Anuchard, Broforce Forever, Darkest Dungeon, Death's Door, Maquette, and Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. So unfortunately, there is some really good games leaving the service, so definitely squeeze those in the next week if you get the time. Next up, the Xbox Pulse Cipher controller was announced, so I'll go ahead and put the picture up on your screen so you can see it. It's another one of their transparent controllers they've been putting out lately, but this one is red, and red is my favorite color, and I really do miss this early 2000s aesthetic. I'm sure everybody had at least one of those transparent DualShock 2s back in the day. And heck, even if it wasn't a DualShock 2, say you're a bit younger, I'm sure everybody had one of those transparent rock candy Xbox 360 and PS3 controllers, you know what I mean? But anyway, this one will be available April 2nd, 2025. It's available to pre-order now for $74.99. Otherwise, you can just wait till April, but I think I might get a pre-order in on this just cause, man, it does look pretty cool. I do miss that aesthetic. When it comes to these types of controllers though, it's like, man, I would love to use it. I bought it to play with it, but it's like between this and like that Astrobot controller, for example, for the PS5, it's like, it's so gorgeous that you almost don't want to use it, but a controller's made the game, so that's what you gotta do. Next up, Earthblade has been cancelled. Now, for those that don't know, Earthblade was a game that was being developed by the same developers of Celeste, so this is pretty sad, but we'll go ahead and just go through this. So this coming from exok.com, quote, Final Earthblade update. Hey everyone, I've got some sad news today to ring in 2025. Late last month, Noel and I made the difficult decision to cancel Earthblade. Yes, we are opening the year with a huge, heartbreaking, and yet relieving failure. I want to outline in this post what led to this decision, and what it means for the future of XOK. We made this decision in December and felt it best to wait until now to announce it. For us on the inside, we've had some time to process, grieve, and work toward accepting this, although that process is non-linear and still ongoing. For those only reading this now who might be emotionally invested in this project, we're sorry to disappoint you. What happened? Well, earlier this year, a fracture began forming in the team. Specifically, this was between Noel and I and Pedro, a founding member of XOK, longtime friend and collaborator, and art director of Earthblade, and pixel/UI artist on Celeste and Towerfall. The conflict centered around a disagreement about the IP rights of Celeste, which we won't be detailing publicly. This was obviously a very difficult and heartbreaking process. We eventually reached a resolution, but both parties also agreed in the end that we should go our separate ways. Pedro is now working on his game Neverway, which you should check out. We've played it and it's very promising. Losing Pedro wasn't the only factor in canceling the game, but it did prompt us to take a serious look at whether fighting through to finish Earthblade was the right path forward. The project had a lot going for it, but frustratingly, it was also not as far along as one would expect after such a protracted development process. I do believe that if we soldiered on despite it all, that Earthblade could still be a great game. But would it be worth the pain? Noel and I also began to reflect on how the game has felt for us to work on day to day and realize that it has been a struggle for a long time. Celeste's success applied pressure on us to deliver something bigger and better with Earthblade, and that pressure is a large part of why working on it has become so exhausting. Pedro isn't to blame for this. In fact, the split with him has given us the clarity to see that we have lost our way and the opportunity to admit defeat. I feel many ways about it, but one big feeling is undoubtedly relief. Because this is the internet, I want to be unequivocal here that the decision and responsibility for canceling Earthblade rests entirely with me and Noel. If you are excited about Earthblade and angry about its canceling, Pedro and the Neverway team aren't the enemy, and anyone who treats them as such isn't welcome in any XOK community. What next? Well, while this has shaken out, other members of the team have moved on as well. Noel and I now want to take all of the many lessons we've learned from Earthblade, wipe the slate clean, and refocus ourselves back to smaller scale projects. We're prototyping again and exploring at our own pace and trying to rediscover game dev in a manner closer to how we approached it at Celeste or Towerfall's inception. Scaling the core team up post-Celeste has ultimately been a failure, and that's okay. We gave it all we've got and life goes on. We are happy to return to our roots and reclaim some joy in our creative process, and see where that takes us." End quote. So I know that was a bit of a lengthy read, but I felt it was important to read through it, just given how much of a cultural impact, both in the gaming scene and outside of it, even people that typically don't play games, even people like that either know about Celeste or have played it or were touched by the game's message in one way or another. And given just how much excitement there was for Earthblade, for myself included, because I was really excited to see what this team would do next. It's unfortunate that things went the way they did behind the scenes, but that's how it is, not just in game development, but in any medium ever, art or not. Sometimes things work out, and sometimes they simply don't. So obviously, it's very unfortunate that things didn't work out here, but as they said, life goes on, things go on. Pedro, they're off doing their way, doing their thing, making their game, and now these folks can do the same and move forward and make another game. So hopefully they can take at least some of the aspects of Earthblade, or maybe, end up like spinning it off in some way and doing something at least similar to it and still seeing their vision through. But whatever they end up doing, I wish nothing but the best for everybody involved. This obviously sounded like a very messy situation, but all that matters is that everything is at least somewhat resolved at the moment. They kind of seem to have their path outlined for them. So wishing them nothing but the best, and I'm so excited to see what they do next, because obviously all of the folks involved are very, very talented. Next up, Annapurna Interactive has appointed a new head of games, which, we'll read why this is interesting, because it's like, what are you heading? Anyway, this is coming from The Verge. Quote, "Former Netflix executive Lian Lumbe, I think is how you're supposed to say it, Lumbe, is joining Annapurna Interactive as executive vice president and head of games. For context, Lumbe helped build out Netflix's game development and publishing arm, but now she'll likely face new challenges as a leader of the gutted games publisher. For those that don't know, Annapurna Interactive, which is behind popular indie titles like Shrey, Outer Wilds, and Gorogoa, experienced an upheaval last year when the entirety of its staff resigned. We did cover that on this show. Literally, the entire staff resigned all at once, which is that's why I said, like, what are you heading? Because there's nobody there. Maybe they fired some, I would hope they fired some people on since that did happen a while ago now, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a fresh slate there. It's a very interesting situation. But anyway, Lumbe, just for some history, worked at Riot Games before joining Netflix back in 2020, where she brought titles like Hades and the GTA trilogy into the streamer's growing gaming portfolio and helped head up its cloud gaming initiative. Quote, "I've always admired how incredibly thoughtful Annapurna Interactive is about supporting developers who have a strong creative vision and empowering them to create high-quality games that players love," Lumbe said in a post on LinkedIn. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to continue creating and strengthening a place developers can call home." End quote. So, just figured I'd cover this. I always like to cover whenever there's major shakeups in terms of leadership at these various game, development studios or publishing studios, and this was definitely one where, Annapurna Interactive, they've definitely been publishing a lot of notable titles in recent years, again, with things like Shrey or Outer Wilds, which are absolutely fantastic games, obviously. So we'll see how things shake out here and what the future of Annapurna holds, because obviously, since the whole team left, things are a little different there, so it's got an interesting future ahead of it. Next up, Insomniac Games president slash founder Ted Price is retiring. So, this coming from SonyInteractive.com, quote, "Despite a challenging 2024, Insomniac stayed fully focused on building games for our fans. As a result of the team's persistence and collaboration, we're in one of the strongest positions we've experienced in years, with each game in development looking beautiful and playing fantastic. Therefore, last week, I felt comfortable announcing to the Insomniac team that after having been incredibly fortunate to enjoy such a fulfilling career in games, I'll be retiring from the industry at the end of March. Today, I'm sharing this news more broadly. I actually made this decision last year. For me, after over 30 years of leading Insomniac, I felt it was simply time to step aside and let others pave the way for our team. Also today, I'm extremely happy to announce that Ched Dezern, Ryan Schneider, and Jen Huang will become Insomniac Games' new co-studio heads. To conclude this blog, Insomniac has been my life, my home away from home for 3 decades. I want to thank every Insomniac for having a positive and lasting impact in my life. Working side by side with Insomniacs for so many years has been a gift that I'll cherish for the rest of my days. I also want to thank our fans who for 3 decades have shared their enthusiasm, their encouragement, and their support, inspiring us to take every game farther than the last. As for me, I'm very excited to officially join the ranks of Insomniac fans. I can't wait to experience our future games purely as a player. And finally, I'm confident that under the combined leadership of Chad, Jen, and Ryan, Insomniac will continue to deliver the industry-defining games that players have come to expect from us, while making a positive and lasting impact on people's lives for decades to come. Thank you to Insomniacs, to our players, and to video games for 30 wonderful years. From Ted." End quote. So, that's pretty huge, man. Ted Price, again, not only the president, but also the founder of Insomniac Games, officially retiring. But I mean, again, he's been in the business for over 30 years. You know, time ranges, it really depends. For some folks, they don't make it long in the game industry. They just simply don't have the stamina to keep up with what the game industry demands of you. Whereas other ones, they go on, like, well, look at Shigeru Miyamoto, for example, from Nintendo. I mean, he's been there, like, literally forever. But, you know, this is definitely in, like, the middle range of things, where it's like, you know, this guy, he wasn't necessarily, you know, in the position to stay there for the rest of his life like some of the folks over at Nintendo have, but, you know, he had a solid career there, a good 30 years, not to mention anything else he would have done before that, whether that be other jobs or schooling. After putting in all the work that this man has and doing all the incredible things that this man has, there's nothing wrong with just saying, you know what, I've done what I need to do, and then just kind of living out your days. I can totally respect that, and I wish nothing but the best for him. Next up, the Dragon Age The Veilguard director Corinne Busche has left BioWare. Did I say that right? Corinne? How are you supposed to say that name? Anyway, this is coming from Eurogamer. Quote, "Dragon Age game director Corinne Busche has now confirmed her departure from BioWare and EA in a statement to Eurogamer. Quote, "At the heart of it, this was about my own fulfillment," Busche told Eurogamer. "I did what I set out to do at BioWare, that is to come in and help right the ship. I love Dragon Age and BioWare, so the chance to return the game to a proper quality single-player RPG was the privilege of a lifetime. It was hard-fought, as games with such tumultuous dev cycles rarely end up shipping, and even more rarely turn out great. We as a team did it, and it was hard. It took a toll on me. BioWare still has a lot of work to do culturally, but I do believe they are on the right footing now. As for me, my departure was voluntary, as I have been presented with an opportunity I couldn't turn down. I don't want to say much more right now, but you can count on it being in the CRPG space and upholding the tradition of great characters." End quote. So, you know, again, it's just one of those things where I typically like to cover these stories just because anytime that we hear about a major shakeup in terms of leadership at a game studio, I just feel like it's worth covering. And it is kind of interesting that, you know, the Veilguard just came out a few months ago, and then she's just gonna like, alright, I'm out. But again, it does make sense because she was presented with an opportunity that she truly believed in to work on another project, so we'll see what happens there. Dragon Age Veilguard, fantastic game, genuinely loved it. And just knowing that she was the director of this game, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on her. I can't wait to see what she works on next. Next up, this kind of ties into the last story, but Dragon Age The Veilguard didn't meet EA's sales expectations. Man, I'm surprised this is EA and not Square Enix that I'm reading, right? Square Enix can sell 10+ million copies and still not having meet expectations. But anyway, that's going from DualShockers. Quote, "Publisher Electronic Arts is preparing for worse than intended fiscal results for the past year. One key cause is the less than stellar sales results for the highly anticipated BioWare RPG Dragon Age The Veilguard. The game missed company projections by roughly 50%, reaching just 1.5 million copies last quarter." I had to emphasize just, because that is ridiculous, dog. It is still 1.5 million copies. You know how many games, like, I know in, like, AAA game development, that's not, you know, the gangbusters, you know, it's not like Call of Duty numbers where it's, like, top of the sales charts every single year, but it's like, I mean, that's still a respectable number. Obviously, when it comes to the budgets for these games, as well as marketing budgets, like, you know, they have to sell so many copies to make that money back, but it's like, still, like, if 1.5 million copies is still enough for you to be like, oh man, this is really hurting our fiscals, maybe scale back the budgets, you know what I mean? Maybe allocate your money and resources a bit better. That's all I gotta say about it, but especially when you consider that EA is like, you know, they got games like Need for Speed and FIFA, or now EA Sports FC under their belt, which actually comes up here in a moment. It's like, you're clearly doing something wrong. But anyway, another key title, EA Sports FC 2025, also sold fewer copies than anticipated, leading to revised fiscal projections. Quote, "We remain confident in our long-term strategy and expect a return to growth in FY26 as we execute against our pipeline," EA Chief Executive Officer Andrew Wilson said in a statement. Another key takeaway is that EA says the game reached 1.5 million players, not sold or even shipped copies. This could indicate that the game was played by that many people, thanks to its inclusion in services such as EA Play Pro. So that is another thing worth mentioning. Like, if okay, so again, it reached 1.5 million players, so even if it didn't sell that many copies, if the subscription service isn't sustainable for you, and if it's going to be hurting your financials, then why are you doing it? You know what I mean? Like, for companies that can eat that cost, like Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, where they have their dedicated Game Passes, PlayStation Pluses, and NSOs, it makes sense for them to have those massive subscription services. But for these individual publishers like Ubisoft and EA that are already struggling lately when it comes to their fiscals, why, you know what I mean? Like, if this isn't profitable for you, then why are you doing it and then complaining about it? You know what I mean? It's like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and then wondering, well, why can't I walk? I don't know, I just kind of get a kick out of this stuff anytime that I, you know, read these things of publishers being like, oh man, didn't meet our sales expectations, gotta revise the fiscals. Anyway, or fiscal projections, whatever. But anyway, it is also worth mentioning that BioWare is still developing a new Mass Effect game, which will undoubtedly sell like hotcakes, whereas Dragon Age, you know, it's always been a bit more of like a niche title, relatively speaking, you know, when it compared to like bigger RPGs like Mass Effect or, you know, anything else like that, for example. So it's one of those things where I'm not exactly surprised that Dragon Age didn't meet their expectations, just because it has always been a relatively smaller title in the grand scheme of things. Not a small title, not a small title in terms of like indie, but still just smaller compared to something huge like Mass Effect. Also considering it's been a long time since we've had the last Dragon Age game, which could both work in and against its favor. Since it's been so long since the last Dragon Age game, that could lead to, you know, the younger players just being like, well, what's a Dragon Age? I've never heard of that before. And then, so that could kind of work against it. But then also kind of working in its favor is the fact that, like, oh man, so many Dragon Age fans have been waiting so long for the next game and now they finally have it. But again, when it's already a smaller title to begin with, then that's kind of where, you know, it gets a little dicey. But still, 1.5 million players, again, if the service is going to be, if it's going to start making it so that they're not profiting, then maybe they should just not do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just me, you know, using my brain and common sense. And finally, I would normally never report on something like this, but this is too hilarious to not talk about. Elon Musk has admitted to cheating/boosting in video games. Some people would call it boosting, some would call it cheating. I would say in this context, it's most definitely cheating, just due to the fact that it's in a bit more of like a competitive nature, and also kind of considering the fact that he was kind of lying to people, or at least hiding the fact that he was actually doing this. So let's go ahead and go read through it. This is coming from Kotaku. Quote, "Buying endgame characters in Diablo 4, Path of Exile 2, and other games is known as account boosting and is technically considered cheating in most games, and it's something Elon Musk has finally admitted to after being called up by various YouTubers. This revelation came in DMs he seemingly exchanged with YouTuber Nico Rex, and which were subsequently shared in a video published on January 18th titled Addressing All the Elon Musk Drama in PoE 2 with Elon Musk. In it, Nico Rex shared screenshots of DMs exchanged with Musk, which the tech billionaire apparently said were okay to publish. Quote, have you level boosted or had someone else play your accounts and or purchase gear/resources for Path of Exile 2 and Diablo 4, asked Nico Rex, to which Elon responded with a 100% emoji before adding that it's impossible to beat the players in Asia if you don't, as they do. Elon noted that he's appeared on multiple streams where it's really him playing the games, but defended using account sharing to boost his characters despite never being transparent with people that this is what he was doing. Quote, regarding Path of Exile 2, was it your intention to take full credit for leveling your HC characters, asked Nico Rex again, and no, responded Musk, never claimed that. The top accounts in Diablo or PoE require multiple people playing the account to win a leveling race. When asked if he would apologize to the Path of Exile community for misleading them, he replied, what would I be apologizing for? Now, For context, Elon Musk has been promoting himself as a hardcore gamer for years, from sharing clips of him playing Elden Ring to community leaderboard placements for Diablo 4 dungeon runs. He even spoke on a recent Joe Rogan podcast episode about his lifelong love of gaming. That appearance also included a claim that Musk was quietly one of the best Quake players around back in the day. However, a genuine all-star of classic Quake claimed that Elon wasn't actually that good, but he's, still an OG because he was still playing back then. There was speculation about all this for a bit now, though, between his questionable Elden Ring builds and a rough performance skill-wise on a live stream earlier this month, and YouTubers like Asmongold immediately called Elon out as a phony after seeing him play in said live stream. So yeah, just a very interesting situation here. World's richest man, at least I don't know if he's actually the richest, but definitely one of the richest, it's been exposed for cheating / boosting in video games and catching a whole lot of flack for it. Me personally, I can't say that I actually care, just because I'm sorry, I have a life to live with things to do, with more important things to worry about this, so I just think it's more funny than anything. I mean, it's not funny that he was, like, lying to the community, it's just, like, it's one part kind of funny that people actually care so much about this, but at the same time, it's kind of funny that this even happened and that he was, like, kind of hiding it to begin with, so it's, like, it's kind of just silly from all angles. It's just, silly internet drama. I normally don't pay attention to this stuff, but with me making the show, it's like, man, I might as well cover it, it's funny. But anyway, that is all the stories that I have for you guys this week, so again, I'm sorry if the vibes were a bit off, if the energy was a bit off, or if it sounded more like I was just kind of reading things off rather than giving my, the usual conversations we do where we sit here kind of going back and forth, talking about my thoughts on things. But it's, again, I really got to conserve my energy right now, get this video uploaded, and then kind of just go back to being bedridden and playing Call of Duty. So, again, I apologize about that. I hope to be better here soon. Much love, appreciation, and thanks to everybody that watches and supports the show on a weekly basis, as always. I know it's a rather small community here, but I'm really passionate about the show, and I always make these episodes. I don't care if I get 0 views, 100 views, 1,000,000 views, or -5 views somehow, even though that's not possible. I'll always be here making these videos covering the news just because I love video games, I love covering the video game news, and I love making these videos and creating content in general. So that's that. I'll shut up now. You guys have had to listen to my voice long enough. New episodes of WGC, aka Weekly GCAP, go live every single Friday at 9 AM Eastern. I love to have you here, but anyways, that's that. So, thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day and an amazing weekend. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.